Hello and welcome to this course where I'm going to be walking you through step by step on how I was able to create this photo manipulation right here. If you're a beginner, this course, this video, this tutorial is tailored for you, and if you're already advanced into photo manipulation, you can still follow along because nobody is perfect. And having said this, let's get it started right away. We're going to start by creating our Canva. In this case, I'm going to be using a Square 1080 by 1080 pixels, the one for Instagram. Once I select my Canva, I will just go ahead and hit on create. The very first thing I need to do is to go in and bring in the foreground. It's going to be this image right here. Just resize it and make it fit to your Canva in the way that is going to make sense. I'm just going to stretch it out like this without holding the control or even the shift key. And now I can go ahead and hit on the check mark. I always like to be organized with my work, and for that I will just go ahead and name this to be foreground. And the next thing we can possibly do is to go ahead and bring in the background. It's going to be this image right here, just as we did before, but in this case I'm going to hold down my shift key and resize it to make it fit to the Canva. Hit on the check mark, and then just as we did before, I will still go ahead and rename this to be background. And now what I can possibly do is to hit on this background and add a layer mask. Selecting the layer mask and making sure the foreground color is set to black. I want to hit on B from my keyboard to have the brush tool and make sure the opacity is 100% and the flow as well, they are both 100%. Just remove some of this part right here. I'm just trying to blend this foreground to the background, just like this. Okay, something like this is going to make sense. Like this is going to be okay. And what I can possibly do, coming over to the foreground, I want to go over to the adjustment and select color balance. Make sure you always clip your adjustment layer to the layer in question, and to do that you always want to click on this button right here. This way to clip it to the layer in question, because we are going to be clipping a lot of layers in this tutorial. Okay, and now I want to clip this color balance to the foreground just like this, and I just need to add some cyan and some blue, and add more cyan a little bit. Okay, and I want to repeat the same thing with the background by adding the color balance, clip it to the layer in question, add some cyan, some blue, and I can add some gray as well, just to make it more cyanish. Okay, perfect. Something like this is going to be nice. And what I can possibly do is to come back to the foreground again, come back to the adjustments and select levels. In this case, it's already clipped to the foreground, and we can just go ahead and add some contrast and remove some of the highlight from the background, just like this. Now we are done with the background. What we can possibly do is to go ahead and bring in the first house. In this case, it's going to be this image right here. I place it at the wrong spot. It needs to be above everything. It's going to be here. Just as we did before, we need to go ahead and rename it. In my case, I'm going to name this to be house 1. And hitting on the W, you're going to have the quick selection tool. Just come over here and hit on select subjects. Wait for some seconds. The object is going to be selected. But in this case, I want some of these parts, because we are going to use these parts to blend the house to the foreground. So I will also go ahead and select this part. Okay, something like this is going to be nice. And now I can come over to the layer mask and mask it out just like this. Hit on V from my keyboard to have the move tool, and I can just go ahead and perfectly place it in a way that is going to make sense. In this case, I'm going to place it at the right side of the design. It's going to be somewhere here. and hit on the check mark. And again, we need to go ahead and bring in the other house because we are going to be using two houses. This is going to be the second house. Hit on the check mark just as we did before. Hit on W, select the subject, wait for some seconds for the subject to be selected, and once it's been selected, just as we did before, I want to add this part as well so that I can perfectly blend the house to the foreground. Come over to the layer mask and mask it out. I still need to go ahead and rename this to be house 2 just to be organized. It's going to help you in the long run. And now hitting on the V to have the move tool, I'll just go ahead and resize this house by holding down the shift key. I'm going to place it somewhere here. Still go ahead and resize it to be of this point. Still go ahead and increase the size once more. Okay, something like this is going to make sense. Something like this is going to make sense. Hit on the check mark, and now there is already a layer mask. Hitting on the layer mask, make sure your foreground color is set to black. Hit on B to have your brush tool, and we just want to remove these sharp edges. Okay, and what we can do right now is to come over to the opacity and decrease the opacity, come over to the flow and decrease the flow as well. And now we can just try to blend these parts to the foreground. Just something like that. You can still go ahead and decrease the opacity once more. Okay, I'm going to come up with something like this. Ctrl+0 to have the big screen. Hold down your Alt, right click and drag your mouse to left or to right to increase the size of your brush. Right now I want to decrease the size of my brush like this, and I can still go ahead and decrease it. Just need to remove some of this part right here. Okay, Ctrl+1 to zoom out from your design. And what I need to do again is to select this other house again and repeat the same process. Hit on B to have the brush tool, increase the size, but firstly I need to make my opacity to be 100. Ctrl+0 to have the big screen and decrease the size of my brush like this, and I want to remove these sharp parts, these sharp edges, just like this. Okay, and right now I can go ahead and decrease my opacity once more to like 46 and just try to blend this part to the foreground just to make it looks more natural. Okay, Ctrl+1 again to zoom out. We're going to come up with something like this. Now hit on V to have your move tool, selecting the house. I want to come back to the adjustment and come back to the color balance. Make sure you clip it to the layer in question. We want to add some cyan, and as well add some blue. Okay, more cyan and add some green to color balance it to other elements that are already present in the background. And now selecting the other house, we're going to repeat the same thing. Come back to color balance, clip it to the layer in question, add some cyan, add some blue and some green as well. We're going to come up with something like this. And now what we can possibly do is to come back to the adjustment layer. Once you hit on the adjustment layer, we want to come back to color lookup, and here on the lot we want to select night from day. Boom, we're going to have something like this. Now our elements are already in the dark, in the night, and with this we are good to go. The background is okay, everything is perfectly placed. And now we need to go ahead to the next step of this video. And for the next step, firstly I need to press on Ctrl+0 to have the big screen, and just try to zoom in into our design just like this. And now hit it on M so that I can have the rectangular marquee tool. Hit on M, you're going to have it. That is the shortcut. I'll just come over here and draw some of rectangle all over this window. But before then, we need to go ahead and come back to the adjustment layer, and here I want to select hue and saturation. Once here I want to hit on colorize, okay, make it more yellow, and increase the saturation to something like this. Okay, and as well increase the lightness to something maybe like this. I want it to be somehow yellow to something like this. Okay, this is going to be nice. The lightness will be here, and the saturation should be somewhere here, somewhere 90 something. Okay, once we have it like this, I can possibly come over to the layer mask of the hue and saturation adjustment and hit on Ctrl+I to invert the color. Once you've done that, now I can hit on M again to have the rectangular marquee tool, and I want to draw a rectangle over this window just like this. There are many ways to achieve this result. You can use the marquee tool, you can use the lasso tool, and as well you can use the pen tool. So there are many ways to achieve this result. On Photoshop, you can basically obtain the same result with many methods focused on the one you find best, but in this video we are going to be using the marquee tool just like this. And as well, come over to this one right here and repeat the same process. Come over here and repeat the same process as well. Come over to this window and repeat the same process to something like this. And here as well, and make it to be here. And now we have 5 to 6 windows, 2, 4, 6. We have 6 windows. What we can possibly do right now is to hit on B to have the brush tool and selecting the layer mask of the hue and saturation. Want to make sure that your opacity is 100% and the flow is at 100% as well. And now you can go ahead and as well make sure the foreground color is set to white because we are going to be painting. And now you can go ahead and paint all over this window just like this. Okay, come over here and repeat the same process. I'm going to repeat the same thing here as well. Come over here, and this is one of the simplest way to draw window. It's one of the simplest. You can use the brush tool, you can use the pen tool, you can use the lasso tool, you can use many other tools to obtain this result, but trust me, this is the most simplest way you can obtain the results. And once we have it like this, now I can hit on Ctrl+1 to zoom out, and then Ctrl+D to deselect everything. The window is perfectly fine, but something is missing. What I can do right now is to come over to the same layer adjustment. I want to double click on the layer to have the layer style. And what I can do right now, firstly, I want to add some of shadows all over this window to make it more realistic. Okay, not basically shadow, but you're going to understand in a bit what I'm talking about. Once you come over to the bevel and emboss, just click over that, you're going to see the trick. You see the way it turns out to be. Now it's more realistic than before. We don't need to do a lot of things here. It's already okay like this. Now I can basically go ahead and hit on OK. Or if you want, you can as well come over to the inner glow. Okay, and here you can basically choose any of the color or increase the opacity to something like this. But I want to be seeing some of the lines of the window. So with that, I'll just leave it this way, or I can increase the opacity to be like 24%. Like this is going to be okay. But if you don't want to be seeing any of this line, you want the window to be more vibrant, you can go ahead and add inner shadow, you're going to have results like this. But I don't want my result to be like this. In any way, you are good to go. I will just uncheck this, leave it like this, and then go ahead and hit on OK. In this our design, this window are part of the elements that are going to be providing us light. Okay, here is already dull and we don't need any more here. This window along with the headlights are going to be our source of light. So with that, firstly, I need to go ahead and create adjustment layer. In this case, it's going to be solid color. Okay, in this solid color, I'm going to be choosing yellow. It's perfectly fine, and I can even go ahead and make it more darker to something like this, more orange, and hit on OK. Now, what I can possibly do is to double click on this color fill adjustment. I want to come back to this underline layer. Hold down your Alt, just click once on this first button. It's going to split into two. Release the Alt. Now, if you drag it over here, you're going to create this beautiful light effect. You're going to come up with a result like this. It's very simple. Don't be intimidated in doing this, okay? Feel free. You can try this out. Once you have it like this, now I can go ahead and hit on OK. What I can possibly do, selecting the layer mask of this layer, adjustment layer, I can just hit on Ctrl+I to invert the selection, to invert the color. Now I can hit on B to have my brush tool. Hold it down the Alt, like I said earlier in the video, just increase the size of my brush like this. Okay, and I can test it out. Everything's at 100% right now. I can test it out. The color is too bright. Ctrl+Z to undo. Now I'll go back to the opacity and I want to make it like 50 something or 40 something as well. Now let's try and add some of this color right here. Later on in the video, this color is going to pop up more. Okay, but now let's just add it this way. Just the reflection. Okay, light up this place like this. Decrease the size of my brush little. Light up here. Okay, light up this part as well. Okay, increase the size of my brush. Just want to light up here and light up here as well. Okay, this part, I want to make it to be this part as well. Okay, decrease the size of my brush and change the color to black. So to remove this part that is not needed. Okay, change the color again by pressing on Airs on your keyboard. The foreground color is going to change. Okay, change it to white again. Increase the size of my brush, and just in any way you know the light can possibly be meeting, because it's going to be very shiny light to these parts. Okay, and now we can see we'll add it here like this. Okay, okay, decrease the flow and change the foreground color to black. Okay, decrease the opacity as well, just to fade it out. Okay, just to fade it out like this. Okay, we're gonna come up with something like this. And now what we can possibly do, first I want to hit on V to have the move tool. We need to go ahead and bring in the lion, the antagonist of our design. It's going to be this lion. I want to right click and come back to flipped horizontal. Hold it down your shift. I want to decrease the size to maybe something like this. Okay, this is the antagonist of our design, and we still have the protagonist, which happen to be the man. But first, let's work with the antagonist, which in this case is this lion. Go ahead and hit on the check mark. And what I can possibly do, selecting the lion, I want to come out to the adjustment layer and come over to color lookup. Just as we did before, we want to select night from day. Okay, it's like this because it's not clipped to the lion. Remember what I said, you should always clip it to the layer in question. If I hit on this, now I'm only clipped to the lion. And as well, I want to come back to the adjustment layer and select color balance. Make sure you clip it to the layer in question. And here I want to add some cyan, some green, and as well some blue. Okay, like this is perfectly fine. And what I can possibly do right now is to hit on Ctrl+0 to have the big screen, hit on Z to have the zoom tool, and I want to zoom in into the image to something like this. Okay, hit on V again to have the move tool. Now come over to the layers, to the lion. I want to add a brand new layer. Okay, and I want to clip this layer to this lion. Hold down your Alt and come in between this line. If you click once, it's going to be clipped to the lion, to this lion in question. What I can possibly do right now is to hit on B to have the brush tool, decrease the size. Okay, and I can increase the opacity to be like 70 something, and make sure my foreground color is black. If it's set to this, you can just hit on D to come back to default. Okay, and now it's black and it's clipped, so if we paint anywhere here, it's not going to show up. The color is only going to pop up if we draw on the lion because it's clipped to this layer in question. Ctrl Z to undo. And for that, our brush want to place it somewhere here, not fully, just somewhere here, just in a way it's going to be meeting only the edges. Okay, to draw this little shadow over the lion, so to make it a little bit realistic. Okay, I don't know if you've seen the changes, but I'm seeing it perfectly. Okay, and as well this side, as well this side. Decrease the size of my brush. This side is not going to be shown. This side as well. This side. Okay, this side. Okay, this side. And now what we need to do again is to select this foreground. Okay, just hit on the foreground, and remember is the very first layer on this our composition, this foreground. I want to go ahead and add a new layer and still make sure the layer is clipped to the foreground, just as we did before. Hit on B again to have your brush tool. If I click on this lion, it's not going to show because the layer is clipped only into the foreground. If I color over this house, it's not going to show up. It's only going to show up if I color over the foreground. Okay, hit on Ctrl Z, and now let's go ahead and place this brush just as we did before, not fully like this, but just little, to make this lion to touch the foreground, to something like this, something like this as well. Okay, something like this, something like this as well, like this, like this. Okay, Ctrl+1. Now the lion is perfectly touching the ground. In this case, what we can possibly do right now is to go ahead and bring in the headlight, the lamp, and it's going to be this image right here. It's already light up. Okay, I'll just hold down my shift key and try to place it in a natural position. Still go ahead and resize it. Okay, and place it somewhere here. Okay, somewhere here is going to be very fine, and hit on the check mark and hold down your Alt to duplicate this layer in question. Oops, that's a mistake. Ctrl plus Z. Make sure you're selecting the lamp, hold down your Alt and just drag once. Okay, hold down your Shift and resize it. Place it in a natural position just like this and hit on the check mark. And now what I can possibly do for the two lamp, I want to select the two layers and hit on Ctrl plus G to group it. I still need to go ahead and rename it to be lamp. I like to be very organized. Without so I can get lost violet. Okay, now selecting this group, I want to go ahead and add a layer mask. Hit on B to add my brush to increase the size. Ctrl plus 0. Now decrease the size of the brush a little bit. The opacity is okay and the flow is okay. And I just want make sure the foreground color is set to black, and I just need to blend it to the foreground. Okay, and this part as well. Okay, perfectly blend to the foreground. Ctrl plus 1. And now, just as we did before, we need to go back to the adjustment and select solid color. Make it to be yellow. This yellow right here, or a little bit like this, and hit on OK. Double click on this layer to add the layer style. Remember, as we did before, hold down your Alt. This underlying layer, just click it once. Now it splits, and just drag over it to create this light, this beautiful light reflection. So something like this, and hit on OK. Selecting the layer mask of the solid fill, hit on Ctrl plus I to invert the selection. Hit on B again to have the brush tool and just increase the size. And let's work with this 70 something opacity and 39 flow. Make sure the foreground color is set to white. By hitting on S, it's going to change. Okay, it's too sharp for me. Ctrl plus Z. And now let me go ahead and decrease the opacity to like 48. Let's try something like this. Okay, something like this is okay. Okay, and since the light is here, it's going to be more sharp here, and I can increase the opacity to be like 60 something. This place is going to be more sharp, and this place as well is going to be more sharp. Go ahead again and let's test maybe 100 opacity and 39 flow. Okay, this place is going to be very sharp. Okay, and now I can decrease the opacity once more to like 36 and just add some of the light reflection to this part as well. Okay, okay, now what we can possibly do is to hit on V, select this main antagonist, the lion. Once you have the lion, make sure you select the very first layer that is clipped to the lion. In this case, that was the shadow. I want to come back to the adjustment layer again and select solid color. You need to go ahead and choose the same yellow. Okay, and hit on OK. Just as we did before, you want to double click to add the layer style. Hold down your Alt, click here once the underlying layer to split it, and just create this light effect, this beautiful light right here like this, and go ahead and hit on OK. Now selecting the color fill, I want to hit on Ctrl plus I to invert the color. Hit on B from your keyboard to have the brush tool, and right now I want to add this light to the lion. So like this. Okay. And increase the opacity to like 70 something. Let's color over the face. Let's add the light over the face. Okay, something like this. Something like this, very nice. Okay, and now what we can possibly do is like this light is off, the color is off from the reflection to the lion's face, and for that I want to select, firstly I want to hit on V, select the lamp. Here is the lamp right here, and now what I need to do is to go ahead and add another solid color. Okay, in this case let's make it to be same yellow and hit on OK. And here what we need to do is to invert this selection already by hitting on Ctrl plus I. In this case we don't need to go over to the layer style. Hit on Ctrl plus 0 to zoom into the image. Hit on M to have the rectangular marquee tool, and you can as well hit on Z to zoom into the image once more. Okay, hit on M again to have the rectangular marquee tool. I just need to draw over this place like this. Okay, and another one maybe here like this. Okay, come back to this very first one and repeat the same process like this. Come over here and repeat the same process like this. Once you have it like this, now I want to select my brush tool, decrease the size. Okay, and selecting the layer mask of the solid color, let's try and paint over it like this. Okay, and come over here as well, paint over it like this. Okay, and I can hit on Ctrl plus I to zoom out, and hit on Ctrl plus D to deselect. And what we can possibly do is to play around with the blending mode to see the one that is going to fit. In this case, the darkening is very well okay. I'll just go ahead and use the darkening. Now the color that is coming from this light and the lion's face are identical, but I can swear go back to the color field of the lion. In this case it was this one. Let me check. Yes, it was this. I forget to even clip it to the lion. Now let's go ahead and clip it to the lion like this. Okay, now it's clipped to the lion, and we can even go ahead and maybe make the color to be a little bit, darker. No, like this. Okay, this is perfectly fine, and go ahead and hit on OK. Now the whole lights are in shape, but that is not all. We need some of this window reflection on this lion body part, this part right here. And for that, still selecting the main solid color, I want to first hit on Ctrl plus 0. Okay, hit on Z as well to even zoom in more. And now hit on B to have my brush tool and come back to the layer mask and select the mask. Make sure the foreground color is white. Okay, decrease the size of my brush, and let's try this opacity of 75. Okay, we'll go ahead and increase the opacity to like 100, and let's color over this part. Okay, and this part as well. This part is already sharp. This part. Now Ctrl plus 1 to zoom out. Okay, perfectly Okay, what we can possibly do right now is to go in and bring in the protagonist. In this case, it's going to be this Batman right here. I'm going to place it here, right click, flip it horizontal, hold down your shift and just try to resize the man who has a lion as a pet. See, the lion didn't bother to attack because he knows who is the boss, who is the landlord. Okay, we're going to try and place it in a way that is going to be looking into the lion. The lion is not even surprised. Oh, that's my boss right there that is coming to my way. Now, this is the man. The first thing I need to do is to hit on Ctrl plus J to duplicate the layer. And once I duplicate the layer, I want to hit on Ctrl plus T to have the transform tool, and I want to right click and come over to distort. Just hold down this part right here and flip it. We just need to create that shadow. Or as well, I can also hit on Ctrl plus Z again. Cancel this part, Ctrl plus Z again. And I want to place this man a little bit here like this. Okay. Now Ctrl plus J again to have the duplicate. And selecting this man, the very first one, I want to hit on Ctrl plus T to have the transform tool, right click and come back to distort. As we did before, just flip it over. Okay, Ctrl plus 0 to have the big screen. Hit on the check mark. That is, hit on Z. Zoom into the image. Hold down your space bar to move things around like this. Hit on V again. Okay, and select this other part that we flipped and just try to Ctrl plus Z. Just try to make this down part to touch the other part of the man. That's the way it's going to be more realistic. Hit on the check mark. Now they are touching on each other. And what I can do right now is to come back to this man in question, double click on the layer to have the layer style, and I want to come over to the color overlay and choose black as my color. Make the opacity to be 100% and hit on OK. Still selecting the layer in question, I want to come over to the opacity and decrease it to be maybe 50%. And still selecting the layer in question, I want to come over to filter and come out to blue and come out to motion blue. Okay, you're gonna have something like this, and I can just maybe first try to increase to see, or even decrease it. Okay, it's okay like this, and hit on OK. Ctrl plus 1 to zoom out. We're gonna come up with something like this. Now, still selecting the man, we need to select the make copy of the man and come back to the adjustment layers and select color lookup. And this time around, make sure it's being clipped to the man so that it will not disrupt our design. And I want to come back to the LUT and choose night from there. Okay, we're going to have the man like this. And what I can possibly do right now is to go back to adjustment again and select solid color. We are going to be using the yellow as well, source of our light. Okay, and hit on OK. Double click on the layer to have the layer style. Remember, as we did before, hold down your Alt, click once on this underline layer to split it and release the Alt. Just try to move things around like this so that we can create a beautiful light effect. Something is wrong, but we're going to get over it later. Just go over like here and make it this way. Hit on OK. I forgot to clip this solid fill to this man, and to do that, hold down your Alt and clip to it. Okay, now I can return again to the layer style. Okay, and try to see things with my own eyes, maybe something like this. Now I can hit on OK. Come over here, the layer mask and hit on Ctrl plus I to invert the selection. Ctrl plus 0 to have the B screen. Hit on B. To have your brush tool, let's try with 100% opacity. I think that's very well okay. Okay. Now let's go ahead and decrease the opacity. And change the foreground color to be black by hitting on S. Decrease the opacity once more. Okay. Now hit on S again to have the white tool to paint over the man once more, but not with the sharp brush. Okay. Now let's come back to the opacity and try to reduce the opacity to something like this, maybe to like 80 something or 83. Hit on Ctrl plus I to invert, to zoom out, sorry. I'm going to have the selection like this. Okay, hit on the color fill again, hit on B, just try to amend some things. Although the opacity is not sharp, but it's okay. It's not going to have any effect here because the layer is clipped to the man in question. Okay. I'm going to come up with results just like this. Now, this is actually optional. I can go ahead to over to the adjustment and come back to color lookup. Here, I just need to choose this 3 stripe look. I'm going to have a result like this. And what I can possibly do is to hold down my Control or Command, Alt or Option, Shift. Then I want to hit on letter E. Okay, doing that, you're going to have all our representative, all our design, all our composition, all this layer on a single file like this, on a single layer. And now I can right click on this layer and come back to convert to smart object. We want to color balance and color grade this our artwork. That's the only way we're going to obtain the main design, the main beauty of this our composition. Okay, now come back to the filter and come over to camera raw filter. Wait for some seconds. I always like to see the before and the after, so I'm going to toggle over that. Starting with the lights, I don't need to touch the exposure, but I need to add some contrast like this. The highlights, I can add some highlights, and the shadow I can decrease, make it negative. Okay, I don't need the white, let me add some black. Okay, and come back to the color. I need to add this tint, this purple. Okay, to have this type of cool color, I just need to add not too much blue, but just little blue like this. Okay, so something like this. And come back to the effects. I want to decrease the texture, negative, and the clarity as well. I can just make it to be like negative 20. Okay, and I need to add some vignette, which is something like this, negative 19. I don't need the gray, I don't need the curve. Color missile, I can come back to the color missile. These blue parts, let's select the blue. Let's change the hue of it and make it more. I need the color I need to achieve is not like this. Let's check this saturation. Okay, this is the color that I need. Create this saturation like this, and I don't need the luminance. I don't need to light it up because it's going to create other problem for our light again. Saturation somewhere here is okay. Color grade, details. On the details, I can remove some of the noise from my composition like this, and go ahead and hit on OK. This is the before. It's very light up, light is everywhere, and this is the after. The light is a little bit controllable here, irrespective to this part that is all over the place. Here is more natural and more cool. You can go ahead and hit on OK. And what I can possibly redo again is to come out to adjustments, color lookup, and now I want to repeat the same process, this 3 stripe look again, to have this type of color. Although it's optional, if you don't like it, you can just remove it to have this type of color right here. Or if you want to achieve the same result, let's remove this color lookup. There is a result that I want to achieve. Since I'm having hard time in achieving the results, let's use color balance. Come back to the adjustments, color balance, no need to clip. Okay, now let's add some of this magenta color. Okay, this is the color I have been searching for. This is the result I've been searching for. Just like this. Like this, I'm very much satisfied. You can see the light on the mount is not so sharp. This is the color that I need. All the color are all moderate. The lights are all moderate. This is what I was searching for. This is it, guys. I hope you learned something from this course, and I believe after this course, after this video, you can just go ahead and practice everything that you learned from here. If you already advanced into this, I know nobody is perfect, and I believe maybe you might have learned 1 or 2 things, and if you do, I'm happy. For the beginners that are watching this course, you can go out there and just try to repeat the same process. Don't be intimidated. Be confident with your idea that you use it. Okay? And having said this, I wish you well in your life, in your journey, and in all that. And having said this, I'm going to call it a day. Cheers. Peace out.